this population. Folks, this is what is at the heart of the World Economic Forum and the UN's plans. Smart city ideas, they sound great, right? But that's somebody else telling you what you can wear, what you can eat, where you can go and when and how. That's not America. That's not the individual liberty and the free markets and the limited government that this country was founded on. It's the opposite. And they're disguising it all with, oh, it's about the climate. We just have to save the earth. Bull crap. It's not about the climate. The planet doesn't need saving except for people like that. What's our task then? Albert Einstein said the world's a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. Over the last 2 years, I've watched New York and LA and San Francisco and St. Louis and New Orleans and all these other ones, roving bands of thugs going to retail stores and just rake everything off the shelves and walk out, and nobody does a darn thing about it. If there's cops there, they stand there. There's an old Indian thing about we all have a good dog and a bad dog inside us. So which one wins? The one you feed. Well, if you let that go on, you're feeding that bad behavior. You'll get more of it. We have to raise public awareness. I don't know, but I would assume that most of you are about like I was. Until 2 months ago, I didn't know anything about this World Economic Forum being right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Farthest thing from my mind. And now the more I peel back the layers the onion peels, the worse it gets. I'm not kidding. They're 95% home free in implementing all of this. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of people. We have been so apathetic and so spoiled. And we won't watch our football games and our reality TV and this freedom that previous generations have given us, and a lot of those generations had to sacrifice, even fight and die. No, we don't need to do that. We just coast. No, we got to pay attention. A citizen in a free republic, you have to pay attention. That's what the founder said. Your danger is not from outside. Your danger is from your government. We've got to raise public awareness that this is not about the climate. It's about control by a group of elites, and they want to do it worldwide. And they're well on their way. We have to establish the credibility of our own message because it sounds, granted, it sounds like what? Global government, population control. This guy's nuts. No, I'm not. Go look it up. I challenge you. You can go look this up. Call me on anything you think I've said wrong. We've got to get enough people to apply political pressure. The only thing politicians listen to are votes. Okay? You can call them, you can write them, all that. But when they know there's enough people out there to vote against their schemes, then they will listen. If you don't have that many people, none of them will listen. We've got to get a lot of help, folks. A lot of help. You guys remember Pogo? Last slide. You guys remember the comic strip Pogo? The most famous one they ever did was that we have met the enemy and it is us. Guilty. We're all guilty. I served 4 years in the military and I thought I did my share. I did my part. No, I didn't. You might not be called to fight, but as an American citizen that's enjoyed the rights and the freedoms that all of us have enjoyed, you have a responsibility to pass that on to our kids and our grandkids. This is going to stop that. If they get their schemes in place, they won't have the same freedoms you and I have. They won't have the same rights you and I have. It sounds like a dystopian novel, I know that. But that's what I feel like. I woke up in the middle of a dystopian novel. I just can't believe this is going on right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But it's going on in a whole lot of cities across this country. My favorite history professor at UTC, he was a Quaker, didn't agree with much he had to say. But he always said this, and I remember this, in a democratic republic, the people get exactly the kind of government they deserve. You think about that. We either get a lot of people to help us to stop this, or what we get from all these schemes, we're going to deserve it because we didn't stand up strong enough to fight against it. Sorry if I took too much time, but I appreciate your attention.
Paul, do you want to field questions?
Sure.
Oh, I just wanted to tell you, it was a great job, by the way, fabulous. I wanted to complete that quote by David Rockefeller. He also said, there are many amongst the population that say that my family and I, through our close work with Cuba and other Marxist organizations, are part of a new world order, that we are promoting a new world order. This was in his memoirs, by the way. He says, if that's the charge, I stand accused.
And proud of
And
it.
I'm proud of it. Yeah, he says it right in his memoirs. He just comes right out and tells us. If we would just read what these people say and believe
A lot of times they're so arrogant, they will say the quiet part out loud because they don't think they'll suffer any consequence. And so far, they've been right. Now, I'm not an activist, okay? I retired a couple of years ago. I wanted to go home and catch up on my reading list, right? And enjoy my grandkids, whatever time I have left. I didn't want this fight. I don't want it now.
No.
But I'd be doggone if I'm going to let my 19-year-old granddaughter and 17-year-old grandson grow up under crap like this when I've enjoyed so much freedom and so much opportunity in this country. We might not be able to do it, but, go down fighting, right?
Yeah.
How did some of this get pushed through and nobody knows?
Well, you remember I talked about that Presidential Council on Sustainable Development? They did it with the cabinet. It didn't have to go before
No, I
Congress.
mean in Chattanooga.
In Chattanooga, I don't know. I think I made the mistake that a lot of people made. I was distracted by what's going on in Washington, D.C. That's just all a misdirection play. And I didn't pay attention to local. They say all politics is local. Well, I wasn't paying attention, and I think a lot of us weren't. And that, if you're not paying attention and fighting against it, they have a free rein to do what they want to do.
So I could, in March 21st, it came before the city council, and there's 9 people on the city council. So a bunch of us, we spoke out against it. There were like 40-something people, and over half of them were like TVA and EPB and all these government agencies or businesses that would directly
Get
benefit from the passage of the Climate Action Plan. And then, so all these people spoke out and then came back a week later on March 28th, and they didn't have any questions. They voted in Ledford, and somebody else wasn't there. So it was a vote of 5-2, and they passed it. And so my comment when I got up to speak was that we never got to vote for anything. Lightfoot, and it wasn't just Kelly for the first time. This has been going on for years and years. Prior mayors, executive orders, establishing things. And so there was a vote there, and it was passed by 5-2. And that's a resolution, which is, do you know that there's a difference between a resolution and an ordinance? An ordinance is a law, and they have to read it twice. The resolution, they usually just read it once and they vote on it. This was the deal because they even had 2 meetings to go over it, because I talked to somebody with the city. And so now the danger is that in the resolution, in the climate action plan is very broad, and then they can, what can come before the city is an ordinance, which satisfies something within the climate action plan, and then they can talk and vote that in. So piece by piece, they can vote in things that help make the climate action plan a reality.
So,
And now the danger of it is they just in August passed the housing action plan. So a lot of the things you were talking about, they're doing that. It's even more invasive. The climate action plan is like 60-something pages, and the housing action plan, the HAP, is 101 pages. To get into it, the affordable housing and the rezoning and the high density and all this is happening, and that one passed as well. You didn't really hear about it, right? So it's everything is just going on, and the media reports a little bit about it, but I don't think they get enough press.
That meeting you talked about with the TVA people and the Power Board people?
Yeah.
Rosa Corey in her book, Behind the Green Mask, that's exactly what she faced. They call them visioning meetings, and it's supposed to be the public.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, well, the public wanted this. We had the input. We got input from the whole public. They will salt the groups there with people who have they have something to benefit from implementing this. People like who work for TVA and the Power Board and so on. That's exactly what she faced in Santa Rosa at every step of the way. And that's there because they've been doing this for so long. They know the tricks. They know how to get around the opposition.
There's a gentleman over here.
Yeah.
This is for Rick, but even though it was just a resolution, they were able to accept the money and install the cameras based on that. They didn't need an ordinance to install cameras.
Well, which cameras are you talking about?
But in this group, we talked about installation on Street?
That's a grant that was passed. So they're doing a lot of things with UTC, like just recently there was a grant from I believe it was the state, and it was for $400,000, and they're going to get 35 license plate readers that they're going to implement around the city to follow us.
So they don't need an ordinance for that?
That's not an ordinance. That was, well, I'm trying to remember if it was a resolution or ordinance, but they did vote to accept that, the city council did, to accept the money.
And there's no strings involved, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, no strings, right. So, but when you add in all the surveillance that's already going on, you know, the drones, and there's a lot of surveillance that we aren't aware of.
But the cameras have been on ML King Boulevard since 2019,
Yes.
prior to this.
Yes, yeah.
And was that just what caused that? Is it just this UTC gets a grant and they are experimenting, or?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
it.
did it ever go through city council, or was that ever heard?
I
Do you know?
believe that did go through city council.
It
It
did.
was 1.2 miles, and then they came out with, I'm trying to remember, the Soul Robotics.
Yeah.
And that was an agreement, and they're expanding it to like over 130 intersections downtown. And now UTC just put out an article, they're going to do the whole downtown. So this is what they did in Oxford, is they do the downtown first, and they just keep making it bigger and bigger. And now they're saying, you know, like London, they're going to do the whole city as a no or low emission zone, where you're penalized if you drive in that city and, you know, if you don't have the right vehicle.
And the number of cameras in London
Oh, yeah.
is unbelievable. It's up in the many thousands. And they always present it as, well, this helps to combat crime. They'll always present it as a good thing, and there's something else behind that.
Just
Don't
just
get too despair. There's is it Idaho? Rick, you might know if it's a mic. Is it Idaho? There's a city that has rejected 15 cities. They tried to put it in there, and they kicked them back out, and they rejected it. So it can be stopped.
So how did they reject it? I mean, was it
I'm not
people
sure.
on the council that rejected it?
Well, you have to go through that. I mean, Rick's been doing
In San
that.
Diego, they created a commission, public commission, and then they were reviewing all this the technology. But then just within the last couple of months, San Diego, the city council, they're basically bypassing this commission, and they're turning on all their cameras that they'd had turned off. The city found out they had 3,000 cameras, street lights with the cameras on. And the San Diego didn't like that, so they got those turned off. Now the city council says, well, we do want those, and they turned them back on. So that's the part where, that's why we have to have an ordinance. If we we go to the ballot box and we vote something in, then the city council can't meet the next week and say, well, we don't like that. They can't overrule our vote at the ballot. That's the only thing that I've been able to come up with that hasn't been teeth.
You think we'll have civil war down the road?
She asked if there's going to be a civil war down the road.
I believe there is. I think there's.
No, because unfortunately, the people on our side are too, well, look around. This place should be packed. They should be out there in the streets, and people, it's not that, I don't think it's not that exactly they don't care. It's like me, I don't think 95% of people know what this is up about. They don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you touched on that about, Americans being so spoiled. I think, the masters have done a great job over the last 40 years of everyone's in their own little cocoon, and especially in Western civilization, we're so spoiled with all the luxuries and that, our own families, and we're taking care of what we care about. Then the iPhones, people get into their own world, they hardly look up. It's not that people don't care, but people don't know. The media, 95% of it is owned by the people pushing this, so they don't publicize any of the negative stuff. They're like, oh, this is going to be so great for you. You have cameras tracking you everywhere if you get lost. No, so I think that part of it is we really need to just tell your neighbors, tell everyone, particularly people who are from here. Some of us moved from other states trying to get out under the
You
thumb
just
from
think
government,
you're
and we
criminal
moved, we
business.
couldn't believe, like, this, what I found out, I had no idea. And I did research on moving here, but really, we need people from Tennessee who already have networks, who've lived here 10, 20, 30, to tell the, you know, spread the word, and, you know, we maybe can come and speak, or, you know, show them the website with these wonderful, Paul has given now 2 wonderful speeches that really get to the point, and you're a great speaker. And so I just really beseech you all, just keep spreading the word. And, you know, we're looking at billboards and other, you know, maybe other organizations that we can join with, because if people knew about it, they would not want this. They want their children and grandchildren to have the freedoms that we grew up with. I know that.
You know, I just came back from Rochester. I came from Rochester, New York, and I was there for 4 days, and I did charities there. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a retired city police officer there, 35 years. And he said, Mike, he said, it's at this point, when we go into work, if you call the police, they will not come. They will not come. Cops go in, he said, there used to be, if there were 2, you know, calls, emergency calls for robbery, rape, assault, you know, some serious thing, I mean, their heads would roll if those weren't covered. He said, now there's 4 pages, and nobody, they just fall off the end of the thing. Nobody will come.
Because they're scared or what?
There's no coverage. They don't
They
have
just
the
don't have
police.
the-
They don't have the police, and even if the police arrest them, they just let them go. The
And
police-
if they arrest them and have to hit them or hurt them, they get sued
He
and
said,
lose
"What
their
am I doing?"
career,
He said,
so.
I go out, he said, when I used to drive my car down the street, if there was, the street settled down as I drove down.
Right.
He said, now I drive down the street, they throw garbage at the car, they cuss, they swear, they have absolutely no fear. He said, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go out and arrest somebody and risk my life and drag him into the, you know, the station where they just let him go. How about that guy right here in town? Right, he murdered that guy right downtown on Market Street. He had
66
66.
67 times.
67 arrests. And he's out on the street walking around, and he murdered this young family man.
Yep.
Well, by the way, George Soros
Yeah.
is a big buddy of Klaus Schwab, the one who's gotten all his DAs.
I'm not surprised.
So I'm curious, just to sort of informal, how many people are from Chattanooga here? And, okay, and then people that have moved here?
Oh, years ago.
Years ago.
70s.
So, okay.
Yeah, years ago.
So we're, in the Safe Chattanooga, a lot of us are, we've moved from other places, and I'm just curious, what is it that, like, what do you see are your big concerns about what's going on? What concerns you? Is it housing or climate, or, I mean, the city?
Oh,
What-
forget the climate.
Okay. Okay.
The climate will be here, God will take care of that
Yeah.
thing. Why we moved here, you mean
No,
originally?
like,
Or
why
what
are you
concern-
here tonight?
Well, I don't live in Chattanooga, I'm in the county, but, and I knew about a bunch of this stuff because I read, but my husband, we were coming down Highway 58, and he said, there's a camera up there. And I said, well, I thought they were downtown. So I thought, well, I mean, so that concerns me. You don't want to be losing your rights, and I think we will get into civil war. That's my own personal viewpoint down the road. And Klaus Schwab will lose because I think there's enough people in this country that when they see something, they're not going to put up with it.
Mhm.
I think that it will come to that. But I think Western civilization is going to take a tumble. And
Yeah.
then I think we're going to get a new form of government. I hope it's a democracy, not republic. That's my
problem is-
personal viewpoint.
The problem is that they've changed to where the hoods, what I'm gonna call them, the thugs, they get off. But the people that are, it's just like the family that tried to defend their home during all those riots back in this big summer. They come out with their guns, they tell them to get off our property, they get charged.
St. Louis.
So that's the problem, is that it's so deep, and we're so late.
I think they call it lawfare.
Well,
They're
again,
using-
And you
using the
can't-
law
and dates.
And no matter what, we
Reverse
cannot beat the military. If they send in the military and they send in, we don't have that ability of power and guns. So it's gonna have to start, I think, what we've been hearing, it's gonna have to start in the grassroots of taking over and taking back our schools, taking back those places because, and I don't know how we're going to get back to a just legal system.
That's the frightening thing, that there are so many of our neighbors and our family members who are all in on this. They think this is great, this is fine. Because they don't understand, they weren't taught in school what made this country different. Okay, like freedom is not the norm. Freedom is the outlier from all through history. You know, it's always been people under somebody else's thumb, and this has been what, 250 years. And everybody knows that thing that Alexander Hitler put out about democratic republics last about 200 years, and they go under.
Right.
Well, you know, we're not as far gone as Canada, but we saw what happened to the truck drivers.
Right.
And it was peaceful, I watched it. There wasn't anything illegally done there. They were just there protesting. They had even gotten permission. But eventually it ended up that they killed people, they took people's bank accounts, they shut down, PayPal took away donations. So what do we do? I mean, how do you get started when we're behind?
Well, what also happened in Canada when they were taking out people's accounts, a lot of people said, hey, I'm not putting up with this, and they started withdrawing their money. And then Trudeau had a turnaround.
And it's going to take a lot of pressure.
Digital bank currencies, they're fight that tooth and nail too.
Well, one thing that's tough is that technology is so adopted by society right now. I have a very good friend, known for years, like, he's been a Republican his entire life, I promise you. He talks politics all the time. And he went, Calvary Chapel, had an event on 15-minute cities, smart cities, about a month ago. I think it is on their website. It'd be worth going to their, if you did not attend, it'd be worth going to their website to try to watch one of the presentations they had. But he was there, and we talked the next day, and definitely believes in freedom, definitely believes in hardcore Republican, but he thought they were being really hard on him because he's a technology guy. He loves technology. And he's a very intelligent guy. And I'm going to say something that I'm flabbergasted by. And I asked him twice on the phone call. I said, did you really just say what you just said? He said, yes. A few days prior to our phone call about the Smart City event at Calvary Chapel, he was talking with a guy who's kind of a radical right-wing guy, is what he said. And the guy said something disparaging about Biden. And my friend's watch spoke and said, you should not say things like that about people, something to that effect. I backed up. I'm like, I about fell over when he told me this. And he confirmed that it said something to that effect. But yet, his watch, his Apple Watch. I mean, I want to call him again and ask him like a third time. But I really believe this gentleman. I really do, because he's straight. But yet,
Have you had that experience at your house with your computer or with your cell phone?
well, not talking back to me like that.
No, not talking, but my wife and I were talking about something not too long ago.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
it pops up on the screen.
But yet, this person who just has that experience
Right.
kind of thinks the smart city is an okay thing because it's just, they're going to get data anyway. It's just data mining. So it's hard to, wow. I would think this guy would align, and he's not.
How does he make his money?
He's into the tech field.
It's hard to get a man to change his mind when
It is.
his paycheck depends on him not understanding something.
We have 16 minutes, and do you want to go ahead and close?
I think this was, even though the crowd was small, I